In early winter, November 2020, chaos erupted in a luxury apartment complex in Chongqing as 2 victims fell to their deaths. The victims were 2 children. Although they were rushed to the hospital immediately, they did not survive. The image of the father crying, shouting, blaming himself for not watching over his children carefully moved everyone. However, when the police conducted their investigation, the incident turned out to be more than just an accident. This is a story that enrages anyone who hears it because only monsters could commit such crimes. Let's unravel the thrilling details of this tragic case. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive notifications whenever a new video is released. The setting of this story takes place in Chongqing, China. On the fateful afternoon of November 2nd, 2020, at around 3:30 p.m., Mrs. Cao Li was preparing to leave for a restaurant to celebrate her husband's 58th birthday. It was supposed to be a day of family reunion, a warm celebration, but a phone call shattered the joyful atmosphere of the family. On the other end of the line was her daughter, Chen Meilin, whose voice was trembling with uncontrollable sobs. Meilin reported that her 2 children, Shui and Yang, had fallen from the 15th floor of a luxury apartment building. Mrs. Cao Li immediately dropped everything and rushed to the hospital. There, the first image that met her eyes was her daughter Chen Meilin and her ex-husband, Zhang Bo, sitting in a daze in a corner of the waiting room. The horror and pain were evident on their faces, and no words could describe the shock they had just experienced. Mrs. Cao Li's heart tightened as she learned that her 2 grandchildren had been pronounced dead. Chongqing City Police quickly launched an investigation, but for Mrs. Cao Li, nothing could erase the immense loss she had suffered. After the investigation, the police discovered that this was a premeditated murder case. The perpetrator could be someone very close to the victims. Chen Meilin met Zhang Bo in 2016 and quickly fell in love with the rural man. Zhang Bo was a young man from the countryside who came to Chongqing with the dream of building a career. With his handsome appearance and confidence, he quickly caught Meilin's attention. However, from the moment they learned their daughter was dating Zhang Bo, Mr. and Mrs. Cao Li strongly opposed the relationship. They believed there was a significant gap between Meilin and Zhang Bo in terms of education and background, which could lead to difficulties in the future. But Meilin, with her stubborn nature, insisted on maintaining her love for Zhang Bo. In 2017, Chen Meilin became pregnant before marriage. At that time, Zhang Bo promised to take responsibility and care for her and the child. In August of the same year, they officially registered their marriage and held a wedding ceremony on November 11th. In the early months after their marriage, their family life seemed perfect. Zhang Bo pampered his wife, and Chen Meilin believed she had found her safe harbor. After giving birth to their first daughter, Shui, Chen Meilin decided to return to her parents' home to receive support in caring for the child. However, less than a month later, she discovered she was pregnant again. In early 2019, their second child, Yang, was born. However, this was also the time when the marriage between Chen Meilin and Zhang Bo began to deteriorate. Zhang Bo became distant from his wife. He was often absent from home, neglecting his wife and children, and their arguments became more frequent. Mrs. Cao Li began to suspect that her son-in-law was having an affair, even though there was no concrete evidence. Despite everything, Chen Meilin still firmly defended Zhang Bo, refusing to believe that the husband she once loved could betray her. However, with the death of their 2 children, the horrifying truth about Chen Meilin and Zhang Bo's marriage began to unfold. In April 2019, Zhang Bo suddenly filed for divorce, citing emotional conflicts. What's notable is that he had hidden the fact that he already had a family while pursuing a girl he met online named Yecheng Chen, who was also born in 1994. By August 2019, Zhang Bo and Yecheng Chen officially became a couple, even though Zhang Bo had not yet divorced. Upon learning that Zhang Bo had a wife and children and was living separately from them, Yecheng Chen did not end the relationship. Instead, she continued the relationship without the slightest concern that Zhang Bo already had a family. Zhang Bo's close friends revealed that he wasn't just with Yecheng Chen for love, but also because of her family's wealth. Yecheng Chen's family owned a large food processing factory, far wealthier than Zhang Bo's former wife's family, Chen Meilin. Enamored and obsessed with Yecheng Chen, Zhang Bo began begging Chen Meilin for a divorce, claiming they were not on the same path, and that he was someone who pursued wealth and luxury. In contrast to Zhang Bo's cold and pragmatic nature, Chen Meilin still wanted to keep their family together for the sake of their 2 children. In her pain and despair, Chen Meilin lost all self-respect, kneeling to beg him to reconsider, hoping to save their marriage. However, Zhang Bo not only heartlessly refused, but also insulted her harshly. "Just seeing you for another minute makes me feel nauseous." Finally, on February 26, 2020, Zhang Bo and Chen Meilin officially divorced. According to the agreement, their eldest daughter, Shui, would be raised by Chen Meilin, while their younger son, Yang, would stay with Zhang Bo until he turned 6, after which he would be handed over to Chen Meilin. Zhang Bo agreed to pay child support totaling 114,000 USDs, to be paid in installments. Despite knowing that Zhang Bo had divorced his wife, Ye Chengchen was still not satisfied. She wanted more. Even though she was fully aware of the divorce terms, Ye Chengchen viewed Zhang Bo's children as a significant burden on their future. Her dissatisfaction didn't stop there. Ye Chengchen gradually expressed that her parents could not accept the fact that Zhang Bo had children from a previous marriage. She began pressuring Zhang Bo, demanding that he take care of both Shui and Yang to ensure they wouldn't stand in the way of their future together. The WeChat chat history between Zhang Bo and Ye Chengchen from June 3 to November 2, 2020 clearly reveals the progression of their criminal plan. Ye Chengchen continuously applied pressure, using cold and ruthless words to persuade Zhang Bo to carry out the heinous act. She repeatedly said, "If you haven't taken care of them, I won't meet your mother." Ye Chengchen even emphasized that she could not accept Zhang Bo having children with someone else. These words not only placed severe psychological pressure on Zhang Bo, but also gradually eroded his willpower. Furthermore, Ye Chengchen's cruelty became evident as she instructed Zhang Bo on how to trick Shui into coming out so he could harm her. Whenever Zhang Bo hesitated, giving the excuse that his daughter didn't want to follow him, Ye Chengchen bluntly criticized, saying, "Having so many kids, no matter how much money you make, it will never be enough to support them." Ye Chengchen repeatedly stressed that her parents constantly scolded both of them and issued an ultimatum that within 1 month, Zhang Bo must resolve the issue regarding the children. As time went on, Ye Chengchen's words became increasingly venomous and inhumane as she unhesitatingly said, "They shouldn't exist," or, "If they are around, we can't be happy and I can't be with you." These words gradually pushed Zhang Bo into a state of anxiety, making him believe that if the children were no longer in the picture, his relationship with Chengchen would improve. Although he fully understood that what he was about to do was a heinous crime, Zhang Bo still agreed to follow his lover's wishes to prove his twisted love. However, the constant pressure from Ye Chengchen caused Zhang Bo to collapse under the weight of it. He decided to break up with Ye Chengchen in mid-2020. But by September of the same year, Zhang Bo could not resist the attraction to Ye Chengchen and took the initiative to reconcile with her. In October 2020, Zhang Bo promised Ye Chengchen that he would take care of everything within the month, but still couldn't escape Ye Chengchen's bitter criticism. On October 25, 2020, Zhang Bo suddenly suggested taking Shui to buy clothes. This struck Chao Li as very unusual because Zhang Bo had never cared about his 2 children before. Cao Li insisted that Chen Meilin must always stay close to the children to prevent anything from happening. Meanwhile, Zhang Bo silently prepared for his cruel plan. He constantly stayed on alert for the right moment to act, taking photos and reporting the situation to Ye Chengchen, receiving her instructions over the phone. However, since Chen Meilin was always by the children's side, he couldn't find an opportunity to carry out his plan and had to give up. On November 1, 2020, seeing that Zhang Bo had failed to kill his own children, Ye Chengchen began to cry and threatened to commit suicide if the plan was not completed. That afternoon, Zhang Bo drove to Chen Meilin's house to pick up Shui. Despite feeling uneasy, Chen Meilin still allowed her child to go to Zhang Bo's place to play. Chen Meilin planned to pick her child up in the evening after finishing her client meeting. However, the work extended late into the evening, and when her ex-husband said the 2 children were already asleep and advised her to let them stay overnight, Chen Meilin agreed. On the afternoon of November 2nd, seeing that his mother had gone out, Zhang Bo immediately committed the crime, murdering his own child to stay with his lover. Zhang Bo, in a state of panic, rushed downstairs in wrinkled pajamas, his eyes bloodshot, collapsing on the ground, wailing pitifully while banging his head against the wall. His cries echoed throughout the apartment complex, causing the neighbors to rush over in alarm. The neighbors, witnessing the painful scene, all believed it to be a tragic accident where the child had accidentally fallen from the window. However, no one expected that beneath this lay a horrifying mystery, slowly unraveling as the police began their investigation. Upon examining the scene, the police found many abnormalities. The window in Zhangbo's bedroom was only 80 centimeters from the floor, with the window ledge just 40 centimeters above the ground. Interestingly, the window had no safety bars, but with this height, it was unlikely that Shui Shui could have opened the window and fallen out as Zhangbo claimed. Moreover, there were no footprints or handprints of Shui Shui or Yang Yang on the window ledge, further casting doubt on Zhangbo's testimony. Zhangbo insisted that, while he wasn't paying attention, the two children had climbed onto the window ledge and accidentally pushed the glass open, leading to the tragic accident. However, according to the investigation, the police discovered that Zhangbo had in fact thrown his two children out of the window. Chen Meilin, Zhangbo's ex-wife, confirmed that both children were afraid of heights and would never have dared to climb onto the window ledge to play. Chen Meilin also pointed out that whenever Zhangbo recounted the incident, his words were always contradictory, and his facial expressions were strange and confusing. In the end, under the pressure of repeated interrogations and inconsistencies in his statements, Zhangbo lost his composure and admitted to murdering his children in order to be accepted by Ye Chengchen. On November 10, 2020, Zhangbo and Ye Chengchen were officially arrested. In the early days, Ye Chengchen adamantly denied any involvement in the case, trying to evade responsibility with false statements. It wasn't until the investigation team recovered all the deleted data from her phone, including 17,000 deleted messages between her and Zhangbo, that the full truth was revealed. Those conversations revealed the illicit relationship and the brutal plan of both, forcing Ye Chengchen to bow his head and confess his crime. Initially, Zhangbo's family stood by his side, even hiring a lawyer to defend his rights in court. However, when they learned the truth that Zhangbo had heartlessly killed his two innocent children, their outrage erupted. His family immediately wrote a stern letter, severely condemning him, announcing the dismissal of the lawyer and calling for the harshest punishment by law. On January 28, 2021, the first trial officially sentenced Zhangbo and Ye Chengchen for intentional murder, both receiving the death penalty. Facing the threat of execution, both Zhangbo and Ye Chengchen began blaming each other, desperately vying for a chance to survive. While awaiting the appeal trial, Zhangbo unexpectedly sent 3 letters to his ex-wife, Chen Meilin, hoping to rekindle some compassion from her. The letters were craftily written, as if he were composing a romance novel. The words in his letters were full of schemes, attempting to manipulate Chen Meilin's emotions. In one of them, Zhangbo casually wrote, "If I could turn back time, I would rather have never met Ye Chengchen." But he didn't stop there. He continued to evoke happy family memories, dreams of peaceful times with his wife and children, which left readers disgusted. Even at this point, Zhangbo kept pretending as if he cared about Chen Meilin and her family, despite being the one who had hurt her the most over the years. Zhangbo failed to realize that his cruelty and cold-blooded nature had existed long before, not merely because of Ye Chengchen's presence that he became a murderer. Fortunately, Chen Meilin was not deceived by these repulsive lies. She recognized that those love letters were not signs of genuine remorse, but a performance staged by Zhangbo to escape the death penalty. At that time, Chen Meilin had only one request: both Zhangbo and Ye Chengchen must be executed. Chen Meilin knew that even if the evildoers were punished, the pain of losing her children would forever linger, never to fade. Behind that pain lay a bitter disappointment in the cruel nature of the man she once loved, who heartlessly killed his own biological children. In an interview with the media, Ye Chengchen's mother knelt down, tears streaming, pleading for forgiveness from Chen Meilin's family. Ye Chengchen's family even offered $42,000 in compensation to Chen Meilin's family, but it was not accepted. On the appellate trial held on April 6, 2023, both Zhangbo and Ye Chengchen unexpectedly changed their testimonies, making the atmosphere in the courtroom more tense than ever. Zhangbo asserted that the death of his two children was merely an unfortunate accident and that he had not committed any crime. According to Zhang Bo, his previous confession was entirely the result of police coercion and not the truth. Meanwhile, Ye Changchen attempted to defend herself by claiming that she suffered from a mental disorder, which led to uncontrollable behavior. She argued that the messages exchanged about conspiring to murder Zhang Bo's 2 children in their WeChat conversation history were nothing more than impulsive words spoken in anger, with no intention of carrying them out. Ye Changchen also accused Zhang Bo of sexually assaulting her and deceiving her during the early stages of their relationship. The prosecution firmly insisted that Ye Changchen's defense was not only vague, but also completely misleading. First, Ye Changchen came from a wealthy family and had built a successful career in the finance sector. Her parents, who were teachers, had given up their teaching jobs when she was young to move to Shanghai and open a food processing factory. This proves that Ye Changchen was raised in a well-off environment, both materially and spiritually. Ye Changchen was an educated person, and there were no signs of any mental disorder as claimed in her defense. Second, after Zhang Bo divorced his ex-wife, Chen Meilin, they had agreed that when their son turned 6, the child would return to live with his mother. In the meantime, the child was entrusted to Zhang Bo's biological mother for care. This means that even if Ye Changchen and Zhang Bo had married, Zhang Bo's 2 children were not an obstacle for this cold-blooded couple. From this evidence, there is only one clear conclusion. Ye Changchen and Zhang Bo acted in a completely inhumane manner. Zhang Bo was a father, but he did not value the lives of his 2 children at all. Instead, he regarded them as burdens that could be discarded at will. While other fathers might sacrifice everything to protect their children, Zhang Bo coldly and cruelly murdered his 2 children, driven only by his blind passion for another woman. On May 11, 2023, the Chongqing High People's Court delivered a public verdict in the second trial of Zhang Bo and Ye Changchen's appeal on the charge of intentional murder. In this verdict, the court officially rejected the entirety of the appeal and upheld the death sentence for both defendants. The crimes of Zhang Bo and Ye Changchen not only shocked the public, but also ignited widespread anger due to the inhuman brutality of these 2 individuals. Chen Meilin, who was directly involved in the case, expressed that since the incident occurred, Ye Changchen's family had never contacted them to apologize or show any remorse, except for offering a compensation of $42,000. However, for Chen Meilin's family, no amount of money could compensate for the pain of their loss. They firmly refused to accept any compensation, and only demanded that justice be served through the execution of Zhang Bo and Ye Changchen. After multiple trials and through various court levels, the death sentence was finally approved by the Supreme People's Court of China, and the death penalty for Zhang Bo and Ye Changchen was carried out on January 31, 2024. The people of Chongqing unanimously supported this verdict, believing that it was entirely appropriate, sufficient to serve as a deterrent, and a demonstration of justice for the horrific crimes committed by the 2 murderers. One news article headlined the court's verdict with a striking statement. Zhang Bo and Ye Changchen were not born in the same year, month, or day, but they died in the same year, month, and day.
Nearly 20 years ago, a shocking case occurred in Malaysia that resonated globally, and to this day, people still shudder when recalling the unfortunate Mongolian model, Shari Bugin Altantuya. What made the case so terrifying and haunting was not only the extremely cruel and unprecedented method of the perpetrator, but also because this particular murder case was related to a major scandal involving a prominent politician who once served as the Prime Minister of Malaysia. In fact, the case, after it happened, was considered a severe incident that shook the Malaysian political scene. So, who was the perpetrator that killed Shari Bugin Altantuya? Why did he act so brutally towards her? And what connection did the politician have to this horrific murder case? Let's find out now. The story's setting takes place in the city of Shah Alam, the capital of Selangor State, Malaysia. The city is located 25 kilometers west of the capital, Kuala Lumpur. Shah Alam replaced Kuala Lumpur as the capital of Selangor State in 1978, after Kuala Lumpur became a federal territory in 1974. Additionally, Shah Alam is known as the first planned city in Malaysia after gaining independence from the United Kingdom in 1957. This place is known as a great destination for tourists who want to explore the beauty of Malaysia. With modern architecture and many exciting activities, it is an ideal place for those who want to experience a memorable trip. However, in such a modern and ideal place, one of the most horrifying cases in Malaysian history once occurred, and that is the case of model Syari Bugin Altantuya. Everything started on October 20th, 2006, when a young girl named Burma Oyen Chumik went to the Mongolian embassy in Thailand to report the disappearance of her cousin in Malaysia. Since Mongolia does not have an embassy in Malaysia, after reporting to the Malaysian police, she immediately went to Thailand to report it at the embassy. The embassy initially did not pay much attention to the disappearance. However, when Burma mentioned the name of her cousin, Syari Bugin Altantuya, the receptionist's attitude quickly changed. The person urgently asked what had happened, and Burma said that her cousin had told her she was going to meet someone and asked her to wait at the hotel. Even more frightening was that Syari Bugin instructed her cousin to call the police immediately if she didn't return by midnight. Upon hearing this, the embassy staff realized that the situation seemed really unusual. So they immediately reported to their superiors and began the search for Syari Bugin Altantuya. So who exactly is this girl named Syari Bugin Altantuya that has caught the attention of the Mongolian embassy so much? It is known that Syari Bugin Altantuya was born in 1978 into a middle-class family in Russia. Her parents were originally Mongolian, but had lived and worked in Russia for a long time. Her father was a university professor, and her mother a teacher. So it can be said that Syari Bugin was born into a very educated family. From a young age, Syari Bugin showed exceptional intelligence compared to her peers. Besides her mother tongue, she was also known to be fluent in Russian, English, and a bit of French. Not only did she have a high IQ, but she was also blessed with a beautiful face, comparable to any movie star of that time. In 1990, her family moved from Russia back to Mongolia, where she began idolizing one of Mongolia's most popular and famous singers, Madai, the lead singer of the band Black Rose. He was the idol of countless Mongolian girls at that time, but Syari Bugin's beauty captivated Madai, and they got married in 1996, when Syari Bugin was just 18 years old. News of their marriage became a hot topic in Mongolia at that time, and images of the newlyweds frequently appeared in newspapers and media. Thus, from an ordinary beautiful young girl, Syari Bugin suddenly became the center of attention in the entertainment world. Although they had children together, the two later divorced for several reasons. However, Syari Bugin's fame remained undiminished. Thanks to her beauty and quick intelligence, Syari Bugin established her own place in the celebrity world. She even planned to become a model and went to France to attend a modeling training course. But strangely, for some reason, that plan was abandoned. After the divorce, Syari Bugin continued to mingle with the upper class and met her second husband, a wealthy young man, the son of a famous Mongolian designer. This marriage made Syari Bugin Altantuya famous in the Mongolian high society. However, similar to her previous marriage, the two quickly went their separate ways, even though they had children together. 2 failed marriages did not affect Shari Bugin's career and future prospects. She leveraged her extensive connections in the upper class to engage in her own fashion export business. As a result, Shari Bugin frequently traveled on business between China, Singapore, and Malaysia. Some people said that Shari Bugin's involvement in fashion export trade was just a cover. The reason for this was so she could regularly be in high-end places and continuously meet powerful officials. However, no one knew the truth. Therefore, it was understandable that Shari Bugin Altantuya was one of the most famous people in Mongolia at that time. So when the embassy heard that she was missing, they urgently launched a search operation. The strange disappearance of Shari Bugin Altantuya seemed to attract little attention from the Malaysian police. But fortunately, the Mongolian embassy in Thailand put pressure on the Malaysian police. At the same time, they expressed the belief that this matter might be related to some criminal activity. From there, the Malaysian police began to pay more attention to the case. However, the investigation did not go smoothly as new information kept mysteriously disappearing whenever it surfaced. The investigators always felt that there was an invisible hand preventing the progress of the case. More than a month after Burma Oyen Chimig reported the case, the police finally found the body of Shari Bugin Altantuya in a remote area in Shah Alam, near the capital Kuala Lumpur. Or more precisely, what was found was a pile of fragments. The scene was so horrific that many police officers could not endure it and continuously vomited. DNA results showed that this was definitely Shari Bugin Altantuya, who they have been searching for all this time. It was unclear who she had offended to meet such a tragic end. After carefully examining the fragments, besides 2 bite marks, traces of explosives were also discovered. Therefore, it could be determined that the victim was tied to a tree. Her body was fixed with C4 explosives and then blown up. This type of C4 explosive is known for its high stability and is widely known. However, it is notable that in Malaysia, such explosives are typically accessible only to the government and police. By now, investigators realized that this case was not simple and might involve high-ranking officials in Malaysia. After the news of Shari Bugin Altantuya being killed by a bomb was announced, both the Mongolian and Malaysian public were shocked by the brutality of the crime. Mongolians were extremely outraged to learn that Shari Bugin Altantuya had met such a tragic end in a foreign land. There was even a high possibility that high-ranking Malaysian officials were involved in the case. The public put pressure on the government, and the Mongolian government put pressure on the Malaysian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to clarify the case. The investigation continued, and as it progressed, horrifying truths gradually came to light. By carefully examining Shari Bugin's connections and combining them with information provided by the victim's cousin, Burma Oyen Chimig, the police quickly identified the suspect, Abdul Razak Baginda. This guy was not an ordinary person, because at that time, he was an employee at the Malaysian Strategic Research Center and also an advisor to the Malaysian Ministry of Defense. It is known that the victim, Shari Bugin, and the suspect, Abdul, had a romantic relationship before. According to Burma, around 2004, her cousin's life had significant changes. She frequently traveled to Malaysia not only to continue her business, but more importantly, to meet Abdul. Whenever Abdul went on business trips abroad, Shari Bugin, with her excellent language skills, often served as a translator for her boyfriend. In 2006, Shari Bugin suddenly became pregnant, but this was bad news for Abdul because it turned out he was having an affair with Shari Bugin despite having a wife and a 19-year-old daughter. More importantly, Abdul was always seen as an exemplary husband and man. If his relationship with Shari Bugin were exposed, his political career would certainly be severely affected, and he might even lose his job. On the contrary, after becoming pregnant, Shari Bugin always wanted her boyfriend to give her a proper status and hoped he would divorce his wife. But of course, Abdul immediately refused. They only saw Shari Bugin as a beautiful doll to play with and a love slave to satisfy their desires. As a result, the two often had endless quarrels. Later, Shari Bugin, along with her cousin Burma, went to Malaysia to demand Abdul give a satisfactory explanation. Even if she didn't get a status, she wanted a large sum of hush money as compensation for her lost youth and as the cost of raising the unborn child. That was when Shari Bugin Altantuya mysteriously disappeared and was eventually found, her body dismembered. Thus, the police's suspicion of Abdul Razak Baginda was well founded. During the next phase of the investigation, the investigators arrested 3 other important suspects, all of whom were Malaysian police officers. Among them, 2 had special identities, and both were part of the Malaysian Special Action Force, a unit that deals with serious crimes and anti-terrorism for the Royal Malaysian Police. Besides being police officers, they also had an important task of serving as bodyguards for the then Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister of Malaysia, Mr. Najib Razak. After the arrest of the 2 police suspects, 30-year-old Azila Hadri and 35-year-old Cyril Azhar Umar, the case of Shari Bugin Altantuya became particularly famous. Government officials and outstanding police officers in the industry participated in the investigation, causing a stir throughout Malaysia. More and more people realized that this case was very complicated, not as simple as it appeared. According to the police investigation, surprisingly Hadri and Umar had no connection with the victim. Both Hadri and Umar insisted they were only following orders, and the person they obeyed became the number 1 suspect, Abdul Razak Baginda. After this information was obtained, the police arrested Abdul Razak Baginda, and he admitted to having an illicit relationship with Shari Bugin Altantuya, but denied enticing others to murder her. Although, this person still faces charges of incitement to murder. Meanwhile, 2 senior police officers involved in the case are charged with murder, and it seems the case is gradually coming to a close. Next is to wait for the trial. However, is this case really that simple? Shari Bugin Altantuya's initial desire was for status, which then changed to financial support. For Abdul Razak Baginda, this matter was too simple because in Malaysia, he was extremely wealthy and never short of money. If the issue could be resolved with money, he certainly wouldn't be foolish enough to risk his life and career. Moreover, using explosives so brutally to destroy evidence was entirely unnecessary. Is there a hidden secret, or in other words, is it possible that this murder case, due to emotional conflict, is just a cleverly disguised facade? Not long after, a French journalist named Arnaud Dubois conducted an investigation and published a major article in France's Liberation newspaper. The article pointed out that Shari Bugin Altantuya's case might be linked to a major scandal involving the Malaysian government. In March 2005, Shari Bugin and Abdul went to Europe. This trip seemed like a vacation, but Abdul was actually there to act as a middleman for several arms deals, representing Deputy Prime Minister Najib Razak. They planned to purchase 2 submarines from France. As early as June 5, 2002, Malaysia had signed a submarine purchase contract with France, and Abdul's trip to France was only to discuss more specific details. It seems that during the transaction, there was some highly classified information, so Abdul did not hire a translator, but asked Shari Bugin to act as an interpreter. The transaction was quickly completed, but the issue was that 114 million euros were transferred directly to a company account controlled by Abdul's wife. Anyone with keen insight would realize that this was a bribe. That huge sum was likely split between Deputy Prime Minister Najib and Abdul. Putting state money into private pockets would certainly be a grave offense, and thus Shari Bugin Altantuya inadvertently became a threat, a ticking time bomb. To ensure the safety of that secret, Abdul gave his mistress nearly $1 million. But for some reason, after this amount was agreed upon, Abdul kept delaying and didn't want to pay Shari Bugin. She demanded the money many times, but Abdul always found excuses to delay. And after Shari Bugin's incident on October 19, 2006, it was known that she had gone to meet Abdul to demand the money, ultimately losing her life. Therefore, it is highly likely that Abdul and Mr. Najib, wanting to conceal the massive corruption, decided to silence Shari Bugin Altantuya forever. Mr. Arnold Dubois' article took this matter to a new level, causing a major global sensation. If this is true, it not only involves the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, but also relates to the Malaysian government's corrupt practices. In reality, no evidence of the victim Shari Bugin Altantuya's entry records or airport surveillance images was found. That shows that this is not something an ordinary person can do, and thus Deputy Prime Minister Najib Razak became the focus of public attention. In this sensitive situation, Abdul Razak Baginda decided to speak out publicly and admitted that he had a relationship with Shari Bugin Altantuya, but stated that Mr. Najib Razak was not involved in the matter. Deputy Prime Minister Najib Razak also later spoke out, mainly denying that he knew the victim and criticized the journalist for slandering him. However, the victim's cousin, Burma Oyenchimig, disagreed with that statement. She said her cousin once showed her a photo in which Deputy Prime Minister Najib, Abdul, and Shari Bugin were having a meal at a high-end restaurant. Burma said that the three had a very complex relationship and that Mr. Najib definitely knew Shari Bugin. More interestingly, journalist Arnold, who sparked the rumor, suddenly disappeared mysteriously. Some say he fled out of fear of retaliation, while others claim he was eliminated. An anonymous private detective declared that Mr. Najib and Shari Bugin had a relationship, and that Najib had asked his assistant to take her away. He believed this was the reason for the victim's death. This detective was considered a key link in the scandal involving Prime Minister Najib Razak. The presence of the beauty Shari Bugin Altantuya in the process of promoting the $2 billion submarine purchase contract from France's DCNS was seen as a ploy to gain an advantage over opponents, while Mr. Najib was serving as defense minister. In reality, this model and interpreter was a card placed by Abdul Baginda next to the Prime Minister to monitor all government movements. Interpreter Shari Bugin had mysterious activities when following Abdul to Paris to negotiate with DCNS about the submarine purchase. Moreover, the detective was also hired by Abdul Razak to create evidence against murder allegations. This person knew very well the top secrets of Malaysian politics. He asserted that several government officials, including Prime Minister Najib, were involved in the murder of Syaribugin Alton Tuya. However, suddenly this detective and his entire family disappeared after he requested to retract his statement. Only 15 months later, the detective reappeared in India this time, and he said he had received $5 million in hush money, which is why he retracted his statement. But what he said was actually the truth. He also emphasized that as long as Najib remained in power, he would never dare return to Malaysia. On October 31st, 2008, due to the inability to find the French journalist and the detective as witnesses, the High Court declared Abdul Razak Baginda innocent. Regarding the two bodyguards, Hadri and Umar, during the trial, the police found nearly 90 witnesses, including those who saw them directly escort Syaribugin Alton Tuya. The prosecution also accused the two of using explosives to murder the victim in the forest. After a long and arduous wait, the two malevolent bodyguards, Azila Hadri and Shirul Azhar Umar, were finally sentenced to death by the High Court on April 9, 2009. The two defendants showed no surprise, as if they had anticipated this result, but stated that they would appeal. The families of the two defendants not only did not oppose this decision, but also affirmed that this was not a politically motivated sentencing. The parents and cousin of the victim, Syaribugin Alton Tuya, vehemently opposed the sentencing, claiming that Azila Hadri and Siru Azha Umar were merely following orders from the superiors. The real murderer remains at large, which is unacceptable to the victim's family. The victim's family subsequently appealed and demanded compensation of up to 100 million ringgit for the emotional distress caused by Syaribugin Alton Tuya's death. However, this lawsuit dragged on for quite a while, and by 2013, the court accepted Hadri and Umar's appeal. Following the trial, an unexpected turn of events occurred. On August 23, 2013, the court found that the two defendants had no motive to murder Syaribugin Alton Tuya. Moreover, during the previous trial, someone testified that they saw the Prime Minister's assistant taking the victim away, but no one questioned the assistant for evidence. Therefore, the actual evidence for the case was insufficient, reversing the situation. Azila Hadri and Shirul Azha Umar were acquitted, causing outrage among the people of Mongolia and Malaysia. The prosecution naturally disagreed and filed an appeal to the federal court. On January 23, 2015, after reconsidering the case, the federal court made a completely different decision. The federal court immediately reinstated the death sentence for Azila Hadri and Siru Azhar Umar. However, the issue was that Umar had long left Malaysia right after being acquitted 2 years prior. He fled to Australia but was immediately arrested after an international arrest warrant was issued. However, the Australian authorities did not agree to extradite him, so Umar remains imprisoned in a detention center in Sydney, Australia. As for Hadri, he was arrested by the police sometime later while hiding in Malaysia and was detained awaiting further developments in the case. In 2018, Mr. Najib lost the election, and the family of Syaribugin Alton Tuya filed a lawsuit against him in federal court. This request was widely supported by many Mongolians and the new prime minister. By the end of 2019, Azila Hadri, who was on death row, accused Mr. Najib Razak for masterminding the murder the murder of Sharibugin Altantuya, claiming she was a foreign spy endangering national security. He made a throat-slitting gesture and authorized them to use explosives to dispose of the victim. Initially, he was just a subordinate, so he had to obey Najib's orders, and besides, he didn't dare to speak up for fear of being silenced. When Najib was no longer the prime minister, Hadri seized the opportunity to accuse him. He asserted that if the case was retired, he would reveal even more shocking truths about the matter. A few years later, in 2020, Malaysia's Supreme Court sentenced Najib Razak to 12 years in prison for charges of corruption, abuse of power, and money laundering related to the 1MDB Malaysian State Investment Fund. His daughter-in-law, Nur Shamila Shaheen, said the family was informed that he was taken to Kajang prison, south of the capital Kuala Lumpur. "Father-in-law told us to take care of the family. He remained strong and calm," she said. Speaking on behalf of the panel of 5 judges, Chief Justice of the Federal Court, Maimun Tuan Mat, said that the court found Najib's appeal to be without merit. "Based on all the evidence, we found the conviction on all 7 charges to be solid," Maimun said. The 69-year-old former prime minister looked sad and despondent, sitting next to his wife Rosman and 2 children when he heard the sentence. Images transmitted to an adjacent room for the press showed many relatives and friends surrounding Najib before the connection was cut. Outside the court, relatives and supporters shed tears. Earlier, about 300 supporters had gathered as the vehicle brought him to court. Before hearing the verdict, Najib requested a 2-month delay to prepare his defense, but was not granted. According to the federal court's ruling, Najib will serve a 12-year prison sentence and pay a $46 million fine. 4 years later, the Pardon Board, led by the King of Malaysia, announced their decision after considering Najib Razak's royal pardon application, but did not disclose the reasons for their decision. Additionally, the Pardon Board reduced the former Prime Minister's fine from 210 million ringgit to 50 million ringgit, $10.59 million. This prison term will be extended by 1 year if the fine is not paid. And according to Reuters, with the reduced sentence, Najib will be released in 2028. Malaysian and U.S. investigators believe that about $4.5 billion was misappropriated from the fund between 2009 and 2015, with about $1 billion traced to accounts linked to Najib. The High Court in Kuala Lumpur sentenced former Prime Minister Najib Razak to 12 years in prison and ordered him to pay a fine of 210 million ringgit. Throughout this time, Najib consistently maintained his innocence, claiming he was deceived. This scandal was one of the main reasons for Najib Razak's defeat in the 2018 election. However, the case of the Mongolian beauty, Sharibugin Altantuya, has yet to be retried. Furthermore, the details of this case are extremely complex and involve too many interests of Malaysian political factions. The truth of the case is also hard to uncover if there are covert powers in Malaysia intervening. There are rumors that this case involves Azilas Hadri's wife, specifically out of jealousy, as Sharibugin Altantuya has taken her husband. She harbored hatred and planned to kill the Mongolian girl, but this remained just a hypothesis. Initially, the case had very few clues, but mysteriously, the more it was investigated, the more witnesses and evidence emerged regularly. Some others believe that this case is likely a confrontation between Najib and the opposition faction. The faction took action and then turned it into a case orchestrated by Najib to bring him down politically. Many believe that the case would have been resolved early on if both Hadri and Umar had disclosed everything they could. In any case, the case of Miss Mongolia, Sharibugian Altantuya, still has no resolution as to who the real mastermind responsible for her death is.